10 commandments for National Socialists. Your country is the mainspring of your life. Remember this always. 1. Germany is your fatherland. Love it above all, and more in deeds than in words. 2. Germany's enemies are your enemies. Hate them with all your heart. 3. Every national comrade, even the poorest, is part of Germany. Love him as you love yourself. 4. Demand only duties for yourself, then Germany will also regain its rights and privileges. 5. Be proud of Germany. You have a right to take pride in a fatherland for which millions gave their lives. 6. He who abuses Germany abuses you and your deceased. Repay him with your fists. 7. Do not cause mischief, but when someone denies you your rights, God gives you the right to use your fists. 8. Do not be a hooligan anti-Semite, but beware of the Berliner Tageblatt. 9. Live your life in such a way that one day you will not need to stand ashamed before a new Germany. And 10. Have faith in the future. Only thus will you win it.
No, keep politics away from me. It's nothing but swindle and deception. After the revolution, it was still possible to ensnare foolish people with empty phrases. But those times are over. I no longer believe in any of that. I do my work and pay no attention to politics anymore. That's all there is to it.
Forgive my saying so, but then our mutual enemy, by whatever name you call him, capitalism, the Jews, Parliament, democracy, or Marxism, has achieved what he wanted.
Why? I don't understand.
He has ensured that the German people are uninterested in politics. They can slave away and work their fingers to the bone, while the Jews make their politics for them.
You're relentless. But I ask you, whom can I trust in this day and age? Name just one party of the left or the right that hasn't stuffed us full of empty phrases and promises since 1918, and name one that ever had the slightest intention of fulfilling even a fraction of those promises.
You're right. All the parties have lied to and cheated the people. Not one was honest or even tried to put into practice what they promised in theory. They only knew their people at election time. But must Germany's political parties and the disappointment of their betrayals be synonymous with despair for our future? If the parties are no good, then let's abandon them and oppose them.
Oh no, it's too late for that now. We no longer have the courage, faith, or determination to proclaim a new Germany's will to live, not under the conditions we face today.
You would do well to say I, not we. We have the courage, faith, and determination to do it. And you, how do you imagine the future?
There is one factor in which I still see a spark of hope. Our economy. I believe that the indestructible industriousness of the German people will triumph in the end. Work and the economy decide our fate. We must work more and talk less.
Very good. I suggest you go to our 3 million unemployed and preach to them, like a voice crying in the wilderness. We must work more and talk less. Maybe then someone will show you the folly of your platitudes more clearly than I can or wish to right now. The economy decides our fate. Walter Rathenau said the same when he made the first large-scale attempts to fit the German production process into the international syndicate concept of American high finance. You believe in the economy. But what is the economy, if not a national life factor directly interacting with politics? Name one people in all of history that established or maintained a productive economy without a healthy, purposeful political system. And vice versa, name one people with a clear and instinctively confident political system that did not find a way through those politics to establish an economy that ensured the continued existence of the people. Your opinion is utter nonsense, the kind only mercenary Jewish scoundrels or notoriously bourgeois Germans could suggest. The economy is not the fate of a people politics are. Healthy politics create the necessary economy. A healthy economy without the firm foundation of a strong political system is completely unthinkable. In such a case, however, politics are something quite different from what today's so-called German statesmen practice. Politics may be defined as responsible activity in the service of the people, with the goal of creating conditions that enable them to preserve and defend their existence in this harsh world, to multiply, and to ensure liberty and a livelihood for themselves and their descendants.
And that is the political idea you want to practice with your movement, with greenhorns who have barely got a whiff of life, with riots and insurrections, with street fighting and the intimidation of anyone who thinks differently from you, with this unscrupulous fight against the state and its natural foundations.
Yes, indeed, we want to practice these politics because no one else does, neither the experienced, mature leaders of the people who can't complain enough about us greenhorns today, nor the well-bred bourgeois forces of education and the intelligentsia, nor the timid, pale, stay-at-home would-be politicians, neither the state, nor those who make it politics. But allow me some minor corrections. If we practice our politics with the greenhorns youth, German youth, as we call them among ourselves, then we do so with the proud and happy awareness that Germany's youth has found the path leading out of the poison of our present times and toward a new Germany. Whether or not this youth has had little more than a whiff of life matters not to us. Certainly, you've seen much of life, but you haven't a clue about politics. I know 18-year-old lads in our essay who could put you to shame at every turn. Our politics are not based on riots, but where riots are necessary, we are not so cowardly as to avoid them. The average citizen scolds against riots until he is hoarse, perhaps because no one bothers to riot for his nation anymore. And we resort to intimidation wherever we encounter it ourselves. In that case, we don't run to the police like the veterans' associations and rifle clubs, nor do we huddle behind curtains trembling in fear like cowards, waiting submissively for whatever fate decrees. Instead, we go out into the streets and meet intimidation head-on. That is when we turn the theoretical concept of opposition to the bourgeois, one-class state into practice.
That means you become a party supporting the class struggle. You called yourselves the Workers' Party. That was the first step. You called yourselves socialist. That was the second. Now you're talking about a bourgeois one-class state. That's the third and final step. Is there even anything left to set you apart from Marxism?
Really, there's nothing more hypocritical than a fat, well-fed citizen protesting against the proletarian idea of class struggle. You made it through the winter all snug and comfortable. Your very existence provokes class struggle. What gives you the right to puff yourself up, swollen with the pride of national responsibility against the struggle of the proletarian? For nearly 60 years has the bourgeois state been anything other than an organized one-class state, which out of compelling historical necessity gave rise to the proletarian concept of class struggle. Didn't you pay the price for this one-class state on 9th of November 1918? And aren't you at this very moment exploiting the people's despair over the insanity of Marxism to re-establish the same old reactionary bourgeois nonsense as before? Aren't you well-fed citizens ashamed to fight against the class struggle of the undernourished, hollow-cheeked, unemployed, hungry proletarians? Yes, we call ourselves the Workers' Party. That's the first step away from the bourgeois state. We call ourselves the Workers' Party because we want to make work free, because for us, productive work is the driving force of history, because work means more to us than possessions, education, status, or a class background. That's why we call ourselves the Workers' Party. Yes, we call ourselves socialist. That's the second step away from the bourgeois state. We call ourselves socialist in protest against the lie of bourgeois social pity. We don't want pity or social-mindedness. We don't care a hoot for what you call social welfare legislation. That's barely enough to keep body and soul together. We want the rights to which nature and the law entitle us. We want our full share of what heaven gave us and of the returns from our physical and mental labors. That's socialism. And now we speak of the bourgeois one-class state. Why? Because this bourgeois state has become a complete one-class state, a system where value is no longer placed on achievement and will, but only on education, wealth, and tradition. We speak of a bourgeois state because it has taken a nation's greatest good, the love of nation and people, and perverted it into a venal love of possessions. excluding 17 million German feeling and German thinking workers. What the bourgeoisie wanted is irrelevant. What it achieved matters. If it wanted a strong Germany, what did it achieve? An international slave colony, driven to the brink of destruction by the blows of the rebels on the 9th of November 1918. That's the truth. We protest against the concept of the class struggle. Our entire movement is one grand protest against the class struggle that has eliminated our people from history. But we face the facts. If 17 million workers on the left consider the class struggle their last hope, it's only because the right has taught them so in practice for 60 years. And where would we find the moral justification to oppose the bourgeois concept of class struggle if the bourgeois state were not first torn down to its foundations and replaced with a new socialist structure of German society?
And who will help you tear down the old system and build the new?
For that, we rely on the healthy instincts of German workers. The day will come when even the last of them will see the light. Someday both muscle and intellect will rise up together in protest, and then it will be our turn to bring charges and to judge. We will do everything in our power to ensure that time comes soon. Then the workers of muscle and intellect will find each other. Then it will become clear who truly loves his country beyond party and social class. And then the working youth of the future will build the third Germany. That inexperienced youth will then have the say, and wisdom and experience will vanish like chaff in the wind. Then we will take Germany's fate into our own hand. We will solve the problem of socialism radically, and once and for all, unhampered by concerns for tradition, education, wealth, status, or social class, considering only the future of the working German people. Then we will prove that nationalism is more than a comfortable moral theology of bourgeois wealth and capitalist profit. The cesspool of corruption and depravity will yield to the new nationalism as a radical form of national self-defense and to new socialism that will create the necessary foundation.
You speak of socialism, but after a 60-year struggle for socialism, which has resulted in the complete undoing of the ideal of the state, is the German worker not justified in despairing of socialism and the future of his social class?
Never. Consider one, he has not fought for 60 years for socialism, but for Marxism. And Marxism, with its destructive theories of peoples and races, is the exact opposite of socialism. 2. Marxism was never the German worker's ideal of the state. He accepted this jumble of Jewish ideas only because no other choices were open to him in his struggle for the freedom of his class. 3. Marxism is the graveyard not only for national peoples, but also for the one class that fights wholeheartedly for its realization, the working class. It is therefore not the worker's right to give up on socialism, but his duty to give up on Marxism. The sooner he does so, the better for him. The clock is about to strike midnight.
You make a big fuss about opposing the Jews. In the 20th century, isn't anti-Semitism outdated? Aren't the Jews human beings too? Aren't there also white Jews? Isn't it a bad sign that we've 60 million Germans are afraid of 2 million Jews?
Careful. Try to think logically, one. If we were only anti-Semitic, then yes, that would indeed be outdated. But we are also socialist. We can't have one without the other. Socialism, that is the freedom of the German workers and thus of the German nation, can only be achieved in opposition to the Jews, because we want Germany's liberty and socialism. We are anti-Semitic. 2, granted, the Jews are human beings too. None of us has ever doubted that. But by the same token, fleas are animals too, just not very agreeable ones. Since fleas are not agreeable animals, we have no moral obligation to protect them and let them thrive to bite and torment us, but rather must render them harmless. The same goes for the Jews. 3, certainly, there are also white Jews, and their numbers grow every day. But that's no argument in their favor, it's against them. The very fact that we call scoundrels among us white Jews proves that being a Jew is something inferior. Otherwise, one would call deceitful Jews yellow Christians. The existence of so many white Jews proves that the subversive Jewish spirit has already contaminated large numbers of our people. It's just one more admonition for us to fight the Jewish world plague in every possible way. For it's not a bad sign for us, but for you, that 60 million Germans fear 2 million Jews. We don't fear these 2 million, we fight against them. But you are too cowardly for this fight and only beat around the bush. If those 60 million would combat the Jews as we do, they would no longer need to fear them. It would be the Jews' turn to be afraid.
Now you'll have to come clean. Are you monarchists or republicans?
Neither one nor the other, because, one, the question of the organizational structure of a state is a minor one today. A people wasting away under the terms of the Treaty of Versailles has other things to worry about than monarchy versus republic too. The people will be able to settle this question once and for all only when they have their liberty. But in principle, we say a good republic is better than a bad monarchy, and a good monarchy is better than a bad republic. Both forms of government have their merits and disadvantages. Choosing between them is a task for a free people. That said, it's difficult to imagine a government worse than the one we endure now. It's hardly a republic, it's a global marketplace where the loudest shouters and highest bidding Jews pose as statesmen and officials.
Now be honest. Are you for black, white, red, or for black, red, gold?
Neither, because one, it makes no difference to us whether the demise of the Republic of Scheidemann and Stresemann comes under black, white, red, or black, red, gold. Perhaps black, red, gold would be better, so this republic would at least die in a shroud of its own colors. Two, the question of a common flag can only be settled when the German people have united in a common idea and will. The movement that achieves this national unity shall also give its colors to the entire people as a unifying symbol. We are confident that we will be that movement.
Every party has a platform. What is yours? If you want to win the German worker over to your side, what do you offer him?
If we were Jewish big shots, we would now list a long string of promises. Nothing is easier than that. Telling the truth is what's difficult, and it's even harder to listen to and understand it. We tell it nevertheless, knowing that it alone shows the way to salvation. One, certainly every party has its platform, but no party has ever put its platform into effect. None could, nor will they in the future, because all platforms to date have been unworkable. Two, our platform is concise. The liberty of the working German people. The way to achieve it is clear and simple. The liberation of the German worker and his reintegration into the national framework. We will do whatever it takes to achieve this goal. We won't shy away from social revolution if the nation's liberty requires it. We do not fear breaking the chains imposed on this nation if that is what's needed to secure the necessities of life for the German workforce. Three, we promise the German worker only this, that we will fight with him to the last breath for his rights, regardless of what this fight costs or what may follow. We offer the greatest good anyone can conceivably offer a people and its repressed social class, the fight for freedom and bread.
And what does the German worker have to do in return?
Nothing in the world is free, so the worker should bear in mind, one, if he wants to be free, he must make sacrifices to this end. No one can make him free. He must do it himself. And since freedom is the ultimate goal, he must stake his utmost life itself. Two, a goal always stands in direct proportion to the energy expended in attaining it. Only liars promise heaven in return for a party membership card. But we say, liberty is everything. For that reason, it demands everything from us, a long, bitter struggle filled with hardship, worry, arduousness, hunger, danger, and the constant sacrifice of health, pleasure, happiness, and contentment. That's what the German worker must provide. But at the end of it all, the best possible reward beckons, a free Germany of productive labor.
Aren't Marxists perhaps right when they claim the NSDAP is just a petty bourgeois movement led by failed officers, students, and doctors? How can a worker believe such people could liberate him? You won't convince him that only workers can liberate workers.
That's a lot of nonsense in one breath. Listen, one, the NSDAP is not a petty bourgeois movement, but a protest against the bourgeois corruption of socialism in social democracy. Our leaders are not petty bourgeois, unlike people like Scheidemann, Leinert, Noska, and Bauer, who, though once claiming to represent workers, have long since joined the upper bourgeoisie. 2. Name one failed officer, student, or doctor in the NSDAP's leadership. If an officer, student, or doctor leads Marxists, and I could list 100 such names, then he's hailed as a leader of the working class. But if he leads the NSDAP, he's labeled a failure. 3. You ask how they could possibly liberate workers. If your question holds any weight, workers must first rid their movement of the swarm of Jewish intellectuals who call themselves leaders of the working class, but misuse the labor movement for their own despicable aims. Then look at the so-called workers who claim to bring liberation. Scheidemann, Wells, Noska, Bauer, and their kind. They've all become fat, complacent members of the bourgeoisie. Their fight against the bourgeoisie was driven only by envy, and once they joined the upper class, their envy and their fight vanished. The spearhead of the German workforce includes not only workers, but also those who have broken away from the bourgeoisie, renegades who have overcome bourgeois values, not out of envy, but from hatred of a class that has pushed Germany to the edge of ruin. They joined the working class not for personal gain, but from a deep, responsible need to tap into the creative power of the people. They will unite with the German worker in a bond of friendship. Together, muscle and intellect will create the miracle of the future, the Third Reich.
So, if I understand you correctly, the NSDAP is a proletarian party under bourgeois leadership.
I see. You can only think in terms of concepts from a time quickly becoming extinct. The Germany we want represents an overcoming of all these old antiquated concepts. We are neither bourgeois nor proletarian. The concepts of the bourgeoisie are dead, and that of the proletariat will never rise again. We want neither the bourgeois world that is ending today nor the Marxist, proletarian future that the Jews and their servants strive for. We want a Germany of the working class. What does that mean? It means a Germany in which work and achievement are the highest moral and political standards. That's why we are a workers' party in the truest sense. Once we gain the power of the state, Germany will be a nation of labor, a working class state.
Those are grand words, but tell me what's behind them. Or do you intend to use empty phrases to gloss over unthought out half ideas?
Not at all, my friend. Don't misunderstand me. The Germany of the future will be reorganized to its very foundations. It is wrong to believe that the bourgeois class could carry out this transformation, while at the same time being responsible for the current state that must be transformed. The bourgeois state of today, that does not mean members of the bourgeois class cannot help build the new Germany. But the historical role of the bourgeois class is at an end and must yield to the creative force of a younger, healthier class. It will be replaced by the younger class, not of the proletariat, because that term slanders German workers coming from Jewish sophistry, but of the working class. This working class includes everyone who works for Germany and its future, muscle and intellect. Muscle will be guided by intellect, and intellect will ensure the consistent support of the creative power of force to build the new German state. This interreliance of intellect and muscle will unite the workers of both sides. As long as the Jews lead the German worker, they will use the misrepresentations of the International to blur the dividing line. German intellect presiding over German muscle results in the only maxim leading to freedom. German workers of intellect and muscle unite.
In other words, you want to counter the international of Marxism with the nationalism of German socialism?
Exactly. Finally, we've begun to understand each other.
But you must grant me one question. If you've recognized that the enemy, whether we call him the Jews, capitalism, or whatever thinks and feels internationally, then surely he can't be combated except internationally. And the result of such a fight will be the international of socialism, which shatters the international of capitalism once and for all.
I see, my friend, I can talk until I'm blue in the face, and it's all the same in the end. We just can't seem to understand each other. Try to think logically. One, of course, we have recognized that the enemy resides internationally on the backs of European nations. There are barely any national forms of capital left in Germany. The railways, mines, factories, money, gold, the National Bank, everything has been converted into stock papers which lie in the safes of Jewish banks in London and New York. But papers are worthless in themselves. They don't roll on railway tracks, yield coal, produce bread or goods, or create or maintain value. They only serve to skim off interest. If we had a real German state, it would declare all German stock in Jewish banks null and void, treating them as the scraps of paper they are, and proclaim a government of national labor in Germany. Since we don't have such a state, we must endure the blessings of the Dawes colony. There's no national wealth or capital belonging to the people or nation. Everything is under the management of an international syndicate of banks. National capital does not work for us internationally. Rather, the hyenas of international finance work with it internationally. 2. The fight against this world power must indeed be fought internationally. And it would be short-sighted of us not to support, in all countries, every movement fighting on the same front line as we do. But the goal of this fight is never a world republic of socialism. There has never been such a thing, and there never will be. It exists only in the minds of Jewish traitors to the working class and misled German workers. The true goal is the establishment of new nationalistic socialist state. We place little stock in a united international struggle of nations against the international of finance. There are too many barriers to such international communication and cooperation. The international of capital is not so foolish as to enslave all peoples and nations in the same way at the same time. It happens step by step, and no nation equates its situation with a previous case, as each believes it can save itself by compliance and relenting until it's too late, and has been swallowed up by the Moloch of capitalism. Furthermore, my friend, we don't have time to wait for others. We're on the brink of our final collapse, and in this situation, it's a crime to count on the help of others who have never helped us and probably won't in the future. What counts for us is the maxim: God helps those who help themselves. If you keep talking about an international of socialism, you only prove you fail to understand the most basic natural foundations of nation and people. No great conception of a state, and socialism is certainly one has ever led to an international. The guiding principle of history is not blending, but diversity and difference. That has always been so and always will be. Fighting shapes peoples and nations, and anyone who refuses to fight is doomed. You may say, that is terrible. That's the way it is. We must come to terms with it and fight. History is shaped by eternal laws of nature, not by placatory Marxist phrases. Nature loves diversity, not uniformity. It does not want a homogeneous porridge of mankind. It wants mankind composed of many different peoples and races, among which the strongest will always prevail over the weak. We have recognized this fact and are willing to act accordingly to help our German nation forge the weapons it needs in the struggle for existence on this earth, so it can assert itself in this world of struggle and triumph of the stronger over the weaker. That's what we call being nationalistic.
That's all well and good. But now, the pivotal point: how do you envision the solution to the social problem?
To get to the bottom of this question, what is the nature of the social problem? 17 million workers are unconditionally at the mercy of capitalism, which has complete control over all means of production. They are thus forced to sell their only capital, their labor power, at the lowest possible price. For this reason, they rightly feel cast out from a society, by whatever name, people, state, or nation that silently tolerates this situation. Under such conditions, the security of the people breaks down, dividing them into two factions, one that wants to protect this state and one that wants to oppose it. Through such internal division, this nation is eliminated as a power of consequence in the grand scale of history. The solution to the social problem is therefore nothing less than the social reintegration of a part of the population, its decisive involvement in all matters of political and economic importance. And in this way, the reintegration of our nation into the grand course of history. To this end, we demand, one, everything that nature has given the people: land, rivers, mountains, forests, natural resources above and below the ground. The air belongs in principle to the people as a whole. If anyone owns these, He is effectively a trustee of the people's property and must consider himself accountable to the state and the nation. If he manages these possessions poorly or in a manner detrimental to the good of the whole, the state has the right to terminate his ownership and return his possessions to the people as a whole too. As for human strength, talent, inventiveness, enterprise, and ingenuity, production remains the province of the individual. The state guarantees that every productive person, whether their means of output be muscle or intellect, is given the largest possible share in the goods and profits arising from production. 3. Production that is essentially complete and requires no further strength, talent, inventiveness, enterprise, or ingenuity, for example, transportation, communication, trusts, syndicates is returned to the state. With this, the sequence of production comes full circle, incorporating every worker responsibly into its cycle. By putting this system into effect, we free productivity from the shackles of wage slavery. The result will be a free people with a free economy in a free country, the national community.
And that required a new party. Why didn't you just take this platform to an existing parliamentary party? Surely it would have been willing to support it.
You might be right. Certainly any political party would have supported it if it could have gained 1 million votes that way. But we don't set much store by votes in Parliament. We don't just want to support our platform in the Reichstag. We want to put it into effect. That's where we differ from all other parties. The others advocate platforms, talk, debate, take a vote, and collect their parliamentary allowances. But we want to turn our platform into reality. We don't believe in the eyewash of Parliament and parties. That's just a big business association for exploiting the strength and labor of the German people. A parliament is like a drone bee in the German hive. Public funds and public welfare are misused. Behind it all are the Jews who move their chessmen, have them talk, vote, and collect their parliamentary allowances, while they themselves hold the reins of government. If they want something from us, then we're the free and sovereign people, making our will known through our elected representatives. But if we want something from Parliament, we're just rabble. The sum of it all is what's called democracy. No, friend. We've never expected to gain anything that way, nor will we ever place our hopes on parliamentary action. On the contrary, we long for the day when the German people will shake off this un-German system.
And then, what do you expect to replace that system with? There has to be some form of government. If you don't want Parliament, you must come up with something better. What will it be?
It's a long-established fact of history that any young, purposeful party that has deposed a corrupt, internally rotten system has claimed the state and its instruments of power as its own for as long as it took to establish, through a dictatorship guided by self-confident responsibility, the preconditions necessary for the complete conquest of the state and its infusion with new ideas. It will be no different in our case. Once we have captured the state, that state is ours. We alone will be its responsible representative, even if today, in the battle against a corrupt system, we are, and must be, a party not, of course, in the sense of a parliamentary party. The moment that system collapses, we shall be the state. Then we will remodel that state according to our principles. We want to liberate Germany, that's all. A large part of the German people have become so materialistic and cowardly that their good can only be achieved against their will.
That's all well and good, but even you must admit that dictatorship can't be a permanent state of affairs. Something has to come after.
Of course it does, and we've thought about that too, and made our intentions known. By no means do we want to exclude the people from power. We only want to achieve and consolidate the conditions that alone will allow our people to ensure their continued existence on this planet. Once those conditions are achieved and consolidated, our work is done. Then we will have the National-Socialist state we want. The party parliament of democracy will be replaced by the economic parliament of the National-Socialist state. Its members will be elected by the entire working German people according to the principles of universal suffrage. But in such an election, the people will not stratify themselves according to parliamentary democratic parties, but according to the professional guilds making up the national community. Thoroughly organized professional guilds ensure that every working German receives the rights to which he is entitled by virtue of his will. Work and responsibility within the state. The economic parliament looks after economic policy only, not state politics. Its partner in government is the Senate, composed of some 200 individuals, whom the dictator selects from all ranks and professional guilds, and who assist in the affairs of state. These 200 will represent the elite of the entire nation. They support the government with both advice and action and are appointed for life. In the case of a member's death, the others elect a replacement. The Chancellor will be elected from among the Senate. He bears full responsibility for every aspect of the Reich's domestic and foreign politics and is prepared to sacrifice even his life, if necessary, for these political affairs. The Chancellor chooses his own ministers and staff. He takes full responsibility for their actions as well. So it goes without saying that he can appoint and dismiss them at will. Whether the head of this system of government is a president or a monarch will then be irrelevant. The Chancellor is the one who matters, and you can be sure will ensure he's a man of courage and integrity.
Your system sounds remarkably simple and clear, almost too simple to work. Let's say you could enact such a program after seizing the state. How do you plan to take control? You know this state relies on raw power, a police state far harsher than what we had before the war. It's recovering, growing stronger, consolidating its might, and using every tool at its disposal to keep us down. Suppose your minority party gains strength, as you claim. There will come a point where your growth stalls. You may have fighters from across the German people, but you'll never win a majority. The majority will always oppose you, and the state, with all its power, will back them. Then what?
My friend, you're finally starting to grasp it. That's the first logical thing you've said. Then what? Only a true fighter, in both heart and action, can understand. A conqueror. Others will find no answer. What then? We grit our teeth and prepare. We march against this state, taking the final bold step for Germany. We transform from revolutionaries of words into revolutionaries of deeds. We will spark a revolution. We will cast out Parliament and build a state founded on the strength of German fists and German minds.
But you lack the means to take such action.
We're not speaking of mere action, my friend. You're thinking of 1918 or the Cap Putsch. Those were just revolts, coups, soldiers' strikes, nothing more. We seek a revolution. A revolution overthrows an old world and creates a new one. At its heart, a revolution is creative, constructive. True revolutions never fade. They mark the end of one era and the start of another. Yes, we lack the means to seize this state. Our opponents hold every advantage. Weapons, the press, propaganda, parliament, the majority, money, and power. But they lack the one thing we have, the most crucial thing that assures our victory, the will to power. This will to power triumphs always, no matter the cost. It's the brutal resolve that endures poverty, hunger, fear, and hardship for the sake of a great cause. It's the readiness of a few to sacrifice everything, and it will overcome the complacency and comforts of the fat, well-fed majority. The will to power creates the means to power. If others hold the weapons, we possess what they lack, the resolve to use force. This resolve forges weapons when they're needed. Those who believe in their cause are ready to die for it. Democrats no longer believe in democracy. They rely on hired enforcers to defend it. They live for their parliament but won't die for it.
So, you rely on strength. You don't respect justice or the law. Instead, your will is justice and the law, backed by the brutal force of your fists.
Yes, we rely on strength, but it's not because we reject justice or the law. In today's Germany, justice and the law are empty ideas, stripped of meaning. There are no true judges left in Berlin. Justice and the law are trampled. And no one even bothers to disguise barbaric injustices with a veneer of legality. Oppression and tyranny are practiced openly, all in the name of the majority. Whoever holds the majority claims to be right, while the minority is left without rights, persecuted, mocked, and subjected to despotism. We seek justice for the German people. Since those in power refuse to grant it, we demand it with the force of our fist. The right of our people to live outweighs the right of a parliamentary majority to rule. Our will is the will to survive. Justice always stands with life, not death. If democracy denies us this right, we will fight for it with strength.
You're always the troublemakers. You don't want peace and order. You want conflict. War will be the last pearl of your wisdom.
Now you sound as if you're about to cry. You talk of peace. Is what we're given today peace? Is it peace when millions are out in the streets, out of work, without food? Is it peace when young children starve to death? When our people are reduced to beggary? When this once thriving Germany of ours is being made to resemble a desert? What we've experienced since 1918 has been a war without end, growing more vicious and brutal with each passing day. Look at the quotations of the International Stock Exchange. Those are the war reports from the headquarters of the economic war. And German workers and their families are the dead and dying of that war. That's your peace. It's the peace of the graveyard. Your order is the rigid order of death. No, friend, we don't want that. We will call to arms in opposition to it. We will call upon the people to rid themselves of their tormentors and break the chains the Jews have put on us. Only the fight for true peace can lead beyond the death of a people and its nation. The eternal principle of nature is not justice, but strength. That's why we want to toughen our nation so it may survive in the battle of life. Pacifism does not ensure peace, on the contrary. History shows that peoples and nations no longer ready and willing to defend their existence, with force if necessary, have always come to a humiliating end. We will protect our people from that fate. They shall grow strong in will and spirit. They shall not be humiliated like a pariah among nations. We want our rights, and these rights are liberty, bread, and living space. If we are denied these, we will fight for them. This fight for liberty, bread, and living space is everybody's business, from the highest citizen to the lowliest. It's a matter for the entire nation. The united power of 80 million Germans determined to survive will go further toward ensuring peace than any lie about human rights.
And what will be the end result of all this?
The end result will be the freedom of the German people on German soil. This freedom will ensure bread and life for every working German. It bears within itself the moral and spiritual strengths with which we will shape this new country. We want to achieve more through this freedom than just a new system. We want to create the new man who, within the conditions of the better worldview we will have attained, can progress into the future. This future will be ours, or it will not be at all. Liberalism will die so that socialism may live. Marxism will die so that nationalism may live. And then we will shape the new Germany, the nationalistic socialist Third Reich,